Hello everyone. Today on This Is My Testimony, I wanted to talk about identity in Christ and what that really means and what that looks like. I think, that term can be kind of mysterious, like, oh, what does it mean to have your identity to be in Christ? And I think identity in general is super important. It's what's important to you, what you value, what are you driven by, and what are you scared from, and what are you afraid to lose in that sense. I think identity is super important because how you identify as yourself influences your thoughts, and then your thoughts influence your words and your actions. And ultimately, that accumulation of your words and actions defines who you are as a person. And so I think having that strong identity and having it rooted in something higher than just this world is super important. I think to go into my story, growing up, my parents were in the military, so I'm always moving all around the country and trying to make new relationships and leaving others behind. And I think growing up, one of the things I always put my identity as in was other people's opinion of myself. And because I would always lose people and people would leave out of my life, I would really need that connection and that affection and people's attention and a feeling like I belonged and that I had a group of people where I was safe and I could reliably go to them. And I think growing up, that kind of led to me putting my identity in other people and what they thought of me. And ultimately that was just unhealthy because regardless of how hard you try, you're never going to be able to have everyone like you. You're not always going to have people that are always there for you necessarily. We're all flawed people and we can't always be there for each other. We try our best, but we're never perfect. Another thing that I always try to put my identity in is academics. We come here at the Coast Guard Academy, everybody here is a super type A, super successful, and I naturally wanted to fit that mold and to be someone who was smart and someone who was very capable and could help others. And ultimately that also would fail me too, because sometimes I would not do well on a test. And if my identity is in my academics and I get that F, does that mean my life is worthless? That I have that this thing that is my identity is telling me that I'm not worth it. And that's just a big struggle. And I think ultimately the only thing you can truly reliably put your identity in is in Christ and knowing that you've been saved and that Christ has died for you. It's not something that you can do, because if it's something reliant on you, it's gonna fail, because everything we do is flawed. Everything we do will fail. And so trying to put your trust in something that ultimately eventually will not hold is futile and is not worth it. And so I would encourage you to put your identity in Christ and not of this world. And so the next step is, okay, so how do I do this, right? How do I actually put my identity in Christ? And I would say, firstly, is spending time in the Word, of course, and spending time in prayer and just meditating on what Christ has already done for you, and knowing that it's not anything that you've done or not anything of you, but it's all based on what Christ has already done and his sacrifice on the cross that gives you that identity, that gives you that worth, that it really defines who you are. And then the second thing I would say is to try and show it by your actions. Try and almost fake it till you make it. And once you start doing things that are not of yourself, and you start thinking of other people, and you stop thinking so much about yourself and what other people think of you or how well you have to perform on this test, it really lifts a burden. And so you can work from the outside in, from your actions, and then influence your identity. And you can also work from your identity and let that change in identity come out and really show itself in your actions and in your words. And so those are just a few tips of ways to truly become or to have your identity in Christ. And that's what I have for this week's. This is my testimony.